What I'm about to show you has been hidden from humanity for thousands of years, a forbidden technique passed on only among initiates, and that Thoth used to awaken the divine DNA. Yes, your DNA is not just biology. It's a vibrational code, a field of creation that responds to the right frequency. And when you activate that frequency, it's not just your body that changes. Reality around you does too. But here's the point. Not everyone is ready. Because this technique doesn't work if you only listen with your ears. You need to feel it with your soul. Today, you'll understand why Thoth called it the voice of the Creator, and why it's capable of transforming your body into a living portal. Stay with me until the end, because with each part I'll give you the hidden pieces of this code, and when you put it all together, you'll remember who you truly are. Vibration is the movement of spirit, and spirit is the breath that shapes all forms. He who knows the invisible sound knows the secret of the generation of things. You're about to access knowledge that has survived through the centuries like a whisper vibrating among the ruins of time. A code buried in the silence of ancient civilizations, forgotten by modern haste, and now pulsing inside your own body. And the most striking part, it's always been there, waiting for you to hear it. Imagine this. Thousands of years ago, in temples built with impossible precision, Egyptian priests initiated the chosen ones in rituals that didn't involve dogmas, but vibration. They didn't read books. They listened to the sound of the universe, the sound that created shapes, the sound that transformed matter, the sound that awakened the memory of the spirit. And it was this sound that Thoth taught, a hidden sound, not in the ears, but in the blood, in the genetic spiral that defines who you are. This knowledge was encoded not in ordinary words, but in rhythm, geometry, and vibration. In the Emerald Tablet, Thoth states that, as it is within, so it is without. This is not just a pretty phrase, it's a map. It reveals that the outer universe is a reflection of the inner universe, and that to change reality, you need to access your inner source, the thing that vibrates before you even think. Today, we call it DNA. But the ancients called it Code of Light, or even the Book of the Soul. This code holds the memories of your spiritual lineage, of gifts that were forgotten, of frequencies you once knew how to emit. Because, unlike what modern science teaches, your DNA is not just biological, it's vibrational. It's a field of resonance. Every cell in your body emits a frequency. Every emotion alters that frequency. And every thought, depending on its source, fear or love, changes the structure of your vibration. What Thoth reveals to us is that reality doesn't bend to force. It bends to the right frequency. That's why true power doesn't lie in acting with more effort. It lies in vibrating more precisely. But how do you activate this invisible matter and awaken your true creator code? The answer lies in a forbidden technique, passed only from initiates to initiates. It begins with something almost no one notices, the silence between atoms, because it's there, in that apparent emptiness, that the code of light begins to pulse. This invisible DNA, ignored by much of modern science and labeled junk DNA, is actually a field of pure vibrational potential. It's like a blank space waiting to be written by consciousness. And the first one to understand this wasn't a laboratory. It was Thoth. To Thoth, the human being was a sleeping creator, a fragment of the universal mind wrapped in flesh, forgotten of its stellar origin. At the heart of his message is the concept of the field of latent creation, a plane where ideas, intentions, and vibrations remain suspended until activated by frequency. This means your body is not just biology, it's spiritual technology. It's an antenna. In Hermetic schools, this field was known as prima materia, the raw material of creation. Invisible, subtle, yet omnipresent. The alchemists stated that all true transformation begins in this field, not in dense matter, but in the invisible. They said, before you touch gold, transmute the fire. This wasn't a metaphor, it was a map. The Corpus Hermeticum states, the invisible sustains the visible. What cannot be seen is more real than what can be touched. This phrase reveals the heart of spiritual transformation. Everything that exists in the physical world is first born as vibration, form, density, reality. It all results from a field that vibrates before collapsing into a particle. And that's why your DNA, as a vibrational structure, is more than a genetic code. It's a mirror of your inner state. The most fascinating thing is that this field doesn't move by rational will. It responds to vibrational coherence. It's not about how much you want. It's about how much you vibrate. That's why the ancients practiced rituals in silence, fasting, and sound, to tune into this field and ignite what was dormant. The code of light, then, wasn't just activated by words, but by concentrated intention. In Egyptian temples, there were chambers where initiates remained for days in absolute silence. There, they detached from their common identity and touched this invisible matter with their consciousness. It was as if their minds sailed through the cosmic DNA, receiving symbols, memories, forgotten callings. Vibration was the vehicle. The inner light was the destination. And what these initiates experienced wasn't just introspection. It was vibrational reprogramming. It was alchemy at its purest level. They stopped being victims of circumstance and became authors of a new reality. A reality that started within, but inevitably reflected outward. Today, part of this knowledge has been reduced to fragmented scientific experiments. But the evidence is everywhere. Recent studies show that intense emotions can literally change how DNA expresses itself. Deep meditation alters chromatin structure, and this confirms what the ancients knew. Where your mind goes, your biology follows. You are, therefore, a field of possibilities, an unfinished book being written at every moment with the ink of your vibration. And the more coherent your inner frequency is, the more this invisible DNA begins to emit signals, like an antenna tuning into something that's always been in the air, but that only now you are hearing. But accessing this field is not the end of the journey. It's just the portal, because the code only responds when a specific technique is used, a forgotten technique. A technique that was passed on only in the most secret rituals of Thoth's initiates. And this technique, when properly activated, completely alters your vibration, and with it, your perception of reality. The forbidden technique. This technique wasn't taught through words, it was transmitted through resonance, through direct vibration, like a sound you don't just hear with your ears, but with your entire subtle body. It was a living, pulsating sound that carried within it the power to reorganize matter. They called it the sound that moves the heavens. In the initiatory temples of ancient Egypt, disciples were prepared for years before hearing this sound for the first time. And when they did, many cried, trembled, or completely lost track of time. Because that sound pierced through illusion. It tore the veil of the logical mind and reached directly into the vibrational field where the soul's archetypes are recorded. And there, something began to be rebuilt. Thoth said in the Emerald Tablets, "Vibrate with power the name of the Creator, and the veil of illusion will be torn." This wasn't just spiritual advice, it was a precise instruction, because in Hermeticism, everything vibrates, everything is condensed sound, and when sound is voiced with truth and intention, it changes the geometry of your energy field. Literally, it organizes atoms. It restructures the space around you. But it wasn't just any sound. It was a specific, sacred sound that required a precise internal state. The vocalization used in Egyptian rituals was done with controlled breath, crystal clear intention, and absolute silence around. There were no distractions. There was no rush. The soul had to be fully present, because when this sound was vibrated, the body became a direct channel between worlds. It was as if, for a brief moment, the flesh stopped being heavy, and in that space between sound and silence, something revealed itself. An image, a sensation, a symbol. As if the soul itself began to speak, returning the forgotten language of the gods. This moment was so powerful, so real, that many couldn't bear what they saw. Not from pain, but from depth. Imagine suddenly facing what has always existed within you, but was hidden under layers and layers of beliefs. Imagine the truth vibrating in your chest with such intensity that your body starts to tremble. Not from fear, but because it's finally remembering. That's the moment everything transforms. Because you're no longer hearing a sound. You're being the sound. That's the foundation of the technique. It can't be explained. It must be activated. It can't be understood intellectually. It must be recognized by the soul. And the ancients knew this. That's why they didn't write the technique on papyrus. They protected it with silence, because they knew that if this sound fell into unprepared hands, it could collapse someone's vibrational balance if they weren't ready for what would be revealed. But why was this technique hidden for so long? And what exactly began to happen to those who dared to cross the veil using this forgotten frequency? What happened was this: the body stopped being just flesh. Reality began to ripple in response to the sound, and DNA, that structure most people believe is just a fixed biological code, revealed its true nature. It began to function as a multi-dimensional mirror, a portal between realms. Thoth had already revealed this thousands of years before modern biology even existed. According to him, the human being was designed as a living bridge between the visible and the invisible. And the key to that passage lies in the body itself, but not in the isolated physical body, in the vibrational body. Because it is in that subtle field that DNA reflects the geometry of consciousness. In Hermeticism, everything that exists below is a reflection of what vibrates above. The axiom, as above, so below, is not just a symbolic concept. It describes the hidden structure of creation. And DNA, in this context, is the microcosmic reflection of the universal mind. In other words, it is an ordered fragment of the creative intelligence. That's why the ancient alchemists referred to the corpus glorificatum, the glorified body, not as something mythical, but as a real body capable of vibrating in unison with the spirit. They said that when DNA vibrates in tune with the source, it stops functioning only as a genetic code and begins to operate as a bridge of light, a vibrational ladder, an energetic portal. This body, then, is not bound by time. It can move through states of consciousness. It can reverse processes. It can access information from subtler dimensions and materialize them in the flesh. This is not allegory. It's a vibrational process. It's spirit directly shaping matter through frequency. And this portal isn't somewhere far away. It's in you. It pulses in every cell, but it doesn't open by force. It doesn't respond to ordinary desire. It responds to vibrational coherence. That's why so many people try to activate spiritual gifts and can't. Because DNA, as a portal, only aligns when there is harmony between intention, emotion, and inner truth. If you vibrate in disorder, the portal stays closed. But when your vibration aligns with the field of the universal mind, with what is pure, silent, and eternal, something begins to open, not from the outside in, but from the inside out, like a flower blooming after centuries of waiting, like a seal that finally dissolves before the correct frequency. The DNA portal is like a crystal. It can remain opaque for a whole lifetime, or it can start to shine, emitting a light that changes everything around it. And that light is not seen with the ordinary eyes. It is perceived through the vibration that radiates from your field, through the silent expansion that happens when you remember who you are again. But how do you generate that specific vibration that opens the portal? And why can it only be activated by certain sacred sounds? That's what you're about to feel in the next stage. The enigma of the 12 strands. These sounds reverberate through the hidden folds of the genetic structure, not just in the 2 physical strands science recognizes, but in a much more complex and almost entirely forgotten system, the enigma of the 12 strands. According to the oldest traditions, human DNA is not limited to 2 visible spirals. Those are only the dense, visible part of the sacred ladder. The rest, the other 10, are invisible to the eyes and to ordinary scientific instruments, yet silently vibrate in more subtle states of existence. These strands are energetic matrices directly connected to the higher aspects of the soul and cosmic consciousness. In Hermetic schools, it was taught that the soul had 12 archetypal layers, direct reflections of the 12 zodiacal forces, the 12 celestial gates, and the 12 primordial vibrations that uphold the order of the universe. Each invisible strand is like a bridge between human consciousness and these greater forces. And when activated, these bridges restore the connection to the higher self, expand perception, and unlock hidden potentials that were dormant. In the Temple of Dendera, in Egypt, archaeologists found inscriptions depicting initiates surrounded by 12 stars. These images are not just decorative symbols, they represent the full activation of these vibrational layers. They show that the initiate was not merely someone with knowledge, but someone whose spiritual DNA already resonated with the higher fields of creation. And this brings a shocking revelation. A large portion of humanity is operating with only 2 strands of a complete symphony of 12, as if we're only hearing a distant echo of what we are capable of expressing. The other 10 remain inactive because they haven't been tuned. And that's no coincidence. This tuning only happens when there's absolute vibrational coherence between mind, heart, and spirit. This activation cannot be forced. It doesn't respond to intellect nor to physical effort. It is the result of spiritual resonance. That's why the ancients said one had to be pure like the original sound to withstand the reactivation of the higher layers. Because when these strands are touched, everything that is out of alignment begins to dissolve. Patterns, pain, lies, artificial memories. The human being begins to remember. And with that, the surrounding reality begins to shift as well. But this doesn't happen without a test. Because activating these strands is not an automatic process. It's a vibrational calling. A silent challenge that takes place within the soul's field. And this test isn't physical. It's not about effort, sacrifice, or external ritual. It happens in silence, within the frequency. That's where many fail. And when someone fails this test, the portal closes. The field shuts down, and the memory of the divine hides again behind the layers of the mind. That's why the next step is decisive. Because what separates those who activate the portal from those who remain stuck behind the veil is the vibrational test, a silent, subtle, and relentless test. It doesn't measure your physical strength nor your outer discipline. It examines the coherence between what you feel, think, and radiate. In ancient Egypt, this state of alignment was called Ma'at, not just as a philosophical concept, but as a cosmic force that governed the order of the universe. Ma'at is not a behavior. It's a vibrational state where everything is in balance: heart, mind, breath, field. When a person reaches Ma'at, they vibrate in resonance with the greater truth, and it's this state that allows the portal to open. But reaching Ma'at is not automatic. It requires going through the most important process of inner alchemy: solve et coagula. First, dissolve. Release dense emotions, distorted beliefs, patterns that fragment the energy field. Then, coagulate. Bring everything together into a new center. Clearer, purer, more truthful. This is not just symbolic. It's a real energetic practice. When you dissolve the distortions, your field reorganizes. The vibration rises. And at that moment, the heart becomes the point of coherence. Because it's from the heart that the most powerful magnetic field of the human body is born. And when that field pulses in unison with the mind, a phenomenon begins to occur. The eye of Thoth opens. This eye, which the Egyptians also associated with Horus and the pineal gland, is not just a mystical symbol. It represents the activation of spiritual perception, the reconnection with the soul's multidimensional vision. When coherence is achieved, the pineal gland begins to vibrate in a harmonic rhythm, emitting light and receptivity. It's as if the universe says, "Now you can see." But none of this happens if you're not vibrating with integrity. Because in that state, anything incoherent is exposed. If you lie to yourself, if you force a vibration you don't truly feel, if you say, "I'm fine," while vibrating in fear, the field collapses. Ma'at demands truth, not perfection, but raw truth, felt, recognized. The sound of creation. There, in that sacred pause between breath and sound, something much older than time begins to reveal itself. It's an almost imperceptible instant, as if the universe were holding its breath for a second. That's where the primordial sound is born, not the sound we hear with our ears, but the one that pulses directly in the field of the spirit. It doesn't vibrate in the air, it vibrates in the ether. It doesn't resonate in the eardrum, it resonates in the pineal. It doesn't touch the body, it touches the soul. This is the forbidden sound, the sound the ancients protected with codes, rituals, and initiation seals. The sound Thoth described as being older than language, older than creation, even older than time. It was through this sound that the portals opened, always, because before crossing any dimension, one had to chant, vibrate, invoke, and not with ordinary words, but with the exact frequency of the sacred name. And this name is not spoken, it is felt. It pulses between the sternum and the heart like an invisible drum. It's a melody that isn't sung. It happens. And when it happens, everything around you changes. The air feels denser, time slows down, and a kind of living silence fills the space. The vibration fills the environment not as sound, but as presence. The body then responds, but not as flesh or bone. It responds as an instrument. Every cell becomes a resonance chamber. The blood moves in waves. The DNA, once dormant, begins to shine. It behaves like a coded crystal, waiting only for the right sound to align with the higher fields. The genetic strand, which science believes to be merely biological, reveals its other side: spiritual, symbolic, luminous. Alchemy begins. The vibration of the sacred name, whether R-A-A-K, A-U-M, R-A-T-H-O-H, I-A-O, touches the core of the being like a divine breath. There is no literal translation, because these syllables don't describe, they activate. They are frequencies that dissolve blockages, melt identities, and deconstruct the illusion of separation. When chanted correctly, with the right emotion and presence, the energy field changes density. It's as if the space around becomes liquid, wave-like. And in the middle of this new state, something begins to emerge. Symbols, pulsing geometric forms, codes of light that don't come from the mind, they come from remembrance. The soul recognizes them as if rediscovering a forgotten language. Some see spinning circles, others see eyes watching them. Some see temples, star maps, runes, diagrams. But all of them, in some way, feel that this is not new. It's remembrance. It's return. These symbols are fragments of the eternal record. The field, where everything that ever was, is, and will be, remains alive. There, every incarnation, every choice, every sound ever emitted is stored. And when you access this field with the right vibration, you don't just watch, you interact. You activate instructions, paths, reconnections. Because the symbols are more than visions, they are vibrational directions to recalibrate your existence with who you truly are. But this access is sacred. And like all things sacred, it is protected, not by external guardians, but by an inner seal, a vibrational code imprinted in the body since the beginning of creation. It's like a password, not digital, but energetic, a field that checks whether the seeker is in vibrational coherence, in humility, in integrity. If not, the seal doesn't open, the access shuts down, and everything vanishes like a dream slipping through your fingers. This seal cannot be deceived. It doesn't respond to memorized words or to false intentions. It vibrates at a frequency so pure that it can only be accessed by those who vibrate truth. That's why so many come close, but cannot remember. That's why so many hear the sounds, but do not listen. That's why so many see the symbols, but do not understand. The oldest seal of humanity is within you. It was inscribed before you were born, and it remains there, waiting for the right moment, the right sound, the right vibration. Because if you don't know where it is, or how to activate it, the field closes. The access is lost, and the silence once again takes hold of the soul. And in that silence, the world responds, but no longer with echoes of the Creator. Instead, with the reflection of what was forgotten. You are the Creator. When the hidden symbol in the pineal gland is activated, it's not just a mystical vision or an inner flash. It's as if a secret gear of the universe begins to turn from within you. There's no explosion. There's no external sound. But there is a subtle, dense, magnetic reverberation that spreads beyond the physical body, as if the quantum field itself recognizes your vibrational identity and says, "Now, you are remembering." What lights up in that moment is not just a point of light, it's a signature, a coded frequency that had been dormant since time immemorial. The ancients knew this mystery and preserved it in temples, hieroglyphs, and mantras. They called it Ajna, the all-seeing eye, the star seed, the key of Isis. But Thoth named it even more precisely, the seal between worlds. Not because it blocks, but because it opens. Not because it divides, but because it reconnects. This seal is located at the geometric center of the head, at the point where the pineal gland rests like a hidden pearl in the brain. Biologically small, but spiritually colossal. When it's activated with vibrational coherence, that is, when there is harmony between the heartbeat and mental impulses, it becomes a beacon. It emits a spiritual bioluminescence, a light that is not seen with the eyes, but shines intensely in the subtle field and in invisible dimensions. It's in this state that the symbol appears. Not in books, not on the walls of temples, it emerges within consciousness. Like a living memory, not learned, but awakened. It may come during meditation, in the silence of early morning, in lucid dreams, or even at the exact moment when a true emotion touches your center. It's not the same for everyone, but its presence brings the same certainty to all who access it. The time has come to co-create. This symbol is not just an image, it's a vibrational bridge. It connects your personal frequency to the great field of creation. And when that happens, something real changes. Not just perception, but matter. Situations begin to flow more precisely. People show up with the information you needed. Paths open where there were once blocks. Time seems to shape itself to your presence, and life responds with synchronicity and purpose. It's as if, at last, the universe starts to recognize your vibration as a command, but not a command of control, a command of alignment. Because when this symbol is activated, you stop reacting to reality. You begin to shape it from your internal coherence. You don't wish, you emit. You don't force, you vibrate. And that changes everything. This is the return, the true return, not to a philosophy, but to the original frequency, to the vibrational state where you stop being an effect and become the cause, where you understand that spiritual transformation is not theoretical, it is vibrational, it is physical. It expresses itself in how you breathe, how you think, how you feel, how you choose. You become an alchemist of your own reality, a vibrational architect of your timeline. If you've made it this far. Comment, "I recognize the code," in the comments. That simple gesture shows that something in you has awakened, that this wisdom resonated with your soul. And I read every comment, one by one. Now, if you'd like to help the channel more directly and help more people gain access to this ancestral knowledge, there's a link in the first pinned comment where you can contribute. Any help, no matter how small it seems, makes a huge difference for me and for the growth of the channel. But just by watching until the end, you've already done something powerful. You vibrated along. You kept this wisdom alive. If this video touched you, share it with someone who also needs to remember who they are. Spreading this light is part of the collective awakening. And before you go, don't close the screen just yet. I've prepared a special video that complements everything you just saw. Click now on the video appearing here on the screen, and I'll meet you there, on the other side of the portal.